You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
You're tuned in to NightVision Radio, exposing the truth one secret at a time. Prepare yourself as we explore the shadow worlds of suppressed history, secret knowledge, forbidden religion, and shine a light on the conspiracies to keep it all from us. Welcome to NightVision Radio. Hi, everybody. Welcome indeed to NightVision Radio. So happy you could be with us again tonight. I want to remind you that we're live in the chat room at InceptionRadioNetwork.com. And if you'll join us, I monitor that chat room. Our producer, MJ, does as well. And there's a great crew in there. I got to warn you, though, these guys are smart. They know their stuff. So they always come up with some great questions for us. And we'd love to have your questions, too, and your comments in the chat room about the show tonight. So please join us at InceptionRadioNetwork.com. Now, also, I wanted to say that, every week I post information about the show on my Facebook page, and I wanted to invite you to, join me on Facebook. And there's two René Barnetts, actually, with the name spelled exactly the same way, with ReneBarnett. But you'll notice my picture. I'm got on a little derby hat, and I'm waving. So you'll find the right one. And be sure and also like the Night Vision Radio page on Facebook for us. It helps us out and helps us keep going. So I'd appreciate that. I'd love to see you on Facebook, and I'd love to be your friend on Facebook. I don't have that many slots left in my friendship thing. I think you can only have 5,000 friends, and I'm almost there, but I would love to have you guys join me so we can talk and I can hear your stories. You can keep on top of what's going on Night Vision. And, you've heard me talk now, if you've listened to the show, for several weeks, or actually months, I guess now, about the Facebook page or the website, returnoftheTroubadour.com, and about the songwriting contest that they're having. It's really cool. It's a great grand prize. I think it's $5,000 in gold. So they're looking for a song that is, uplifting, something that inspires humanity in a positive way. And if you've got a song, or if you're a songwriter, I think there's still time to get your work in. I believe the deadline is like December 15th. But what I really wanted to say, I didn't mean to go on so long about it, because at the break, a good friend of mine is going to talk about the contest, and he can do a whole lot better job than I can. And he's a rock star, so you got to listen to him. Personal friend of mine. Anyway, I'm excited about tonight's show. I had a great conversation yesterday with our guests that are coming on, and I just had to bite my tongue to keep from asking like a zillion questions because the story is so interesting, and I remember it from a long time ago when the book came out by Raymond Fowler called The Andreasson Affair. And it was one of the, and still to this day, is one of the best investigated and best documented cases of alien abduction that there's ever been. And what's really interesting about it as well is that it happened back in the 60s and even before. So that was before we had all the books about alien abduction, before the movies were all out, before everybody knew what grays looked like, all that stuff. So this was pure information that was coming out and not, put into Betty's consciousness by something that, she had read or seen on TV or in the movies. It just wasn't even happening at the time. So I want to welcome my guest tonight. I have Betty Andreasson Luca and her husband, Bob Luca, on the phone. Thank you so much, and welcome to the show, guys.
Well,
thank you for having us.
Thank you, René, and hello to your whole audience.
Well, Betty, I mean, it's amazing, that I finally got a chance to speak with you after reading that book so many years ago. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I've been involved with a lot of alien abduction cases. I've met a lot of people who feel they've had that experience. I was fortunate to get to know Betty Hill of the famous other Betty and B couple, and Travis Walton. And there are some really, really good cases out there like those that I just mentioned and yours. Other times it's been a little bit fuzzy, but these are the cases that really stand out in my mind as thinking, okay, there's something here. This is real. These people are genuine. And so I got to say, when I got a chance to talk with you yesterday, that I was really excited, and it was really nice to hear the actual people behind the story. So I'm going to start with you, Betty, if it's okay,
Sure.
And just talk about, I know you had some experiences in childhood, but can we focus on that big incident that was sort of the culminating event with your entire family involved? I think you had 7 kids.
Right.
And your mother and father were also in the house at the same time.
Right.
So can you explain just a...
Right. They were there with me because my husband had an accident, and so he was in the hospital for quite a while. And with the 7 kids trying to make things go strong and right, my mother and father came to stay with me. And it was during that time they also were there when the experience happened. What happened was with my what happened was the lights. We had the power was going. The kids were watching television. My mother and father were sitting in the living room with them, and I was there. And suddenly the power went off, and we started to see a reddish orange light coming in through the kitchen window toward the pantry, and we thought, uh-oh, there must be a fire or a police are out there or something. My father had rushed past us, me, and went into the kitchen, and actually he was the first to see what was going on. He was looking out the window to see if it was the police or a fire truck making the red light happen. And he happened to see these little small beings coming down the hill, and he thought that they were kids dressed up in Halloween costumes as Moon Man. That's what he said. And then what happened was I was out in the kitchen at that time, and all of a sudden 5 beings entered my house right through the door. They did not open it. They just came right through the door. And I stood there astonished because wondering what is going on? What is this? However, in my mind, I thought of scripture, to help me not fear so much. And I heard, entertain the strangers, for they may be angels unaware. And who am I to say what angels are supposed to look like? It didn't look like an angel to me, but it did help me to calm down. And as I said, the beings were standing there, and the leader was talking to me through the mind. And I'm wondering, well, what do they want? And what I heard, more or less through the mind, was that they wanted some food. And that's what I was thinking what it was. And so I got some meat from the refrigerator, put it on the stove, and I started to cook it. And as I did, the smoke came up from the meat. And all of a sudden, the beings jumped back like startled. What's going on? And then he again talked with me through the mind, and he says, no, we don't want that tried by fire. We want knowledge tried by fire. And so I thought, whoa, what could that be? And then I thought, well, maybe the Bible. I've got the Bible in the other room. That's been around for a long time, so it's like it's been tried by fire to be able to last hundreds of years. And so we went into the living room. And when we got into the living room, I looked over at the couch, and all my children, plus my mother, were sitting there as if they were just suspended in animation was going on. They weren't moving at all, and this kind of worried me at that time. And what happened was the beings came in and stood there with me, and I took the Bible off the end table and passed it to the leader. And when he reached out his hand, I could see 3 fingers. So I was seeing what he looked like. He had on a blue suit, and they had a golden-colored belt with a sash on it. And I noticed also they had like an eagle emblem on the upper part of their arm on their suit. And what I did was I passed him that Bible, and he in turn put it in his hand, and he waved his hand over it, and on top of it came 3 other small books, and he passed them to the 3 other beings that were beside him.
So what happened was he was able to swipe his hand over the book, the Bible book that you handed him, and instantly copies were manifested.
Exactly.
And he was passing them along to his colleagues there.
Right. And there were 3 of them beside him. But the other one evidently had gone over to where my father was. In the pantry area, there was a half wall there, and then the kitchen area inside there. And I did not see him at the time, so evidently the being had been left there with him when they came into the living room. And he passed them to the 3 beings that were standing beside him, and the pages just moved one after another, and it looked like white light. I didn't see any writing on it; just white light was going as each page moved. And I don't know what they were doing. There was no words there, so I don't know exactly how he was able to transform the Bible into those 3 thin books, but that's what he did. And then I was really worried with everybody just sitting on the couch there, not moving at all. And so the leader saw that I was a little bit nervous about that, and he took my daughter, Becky, out of that state, and she stood up. And she was watching what was going on, but she was just standing there. And he gave me a thin blue book to hold on to, and he said to me that you're allowed to keep this for 10 days, and then I will take it back. But I think it was some type of initiation. Whatever was in it, I was supposed to grasp as much information from it as I possibly could.
How big was that book? And what did it look like?
It was like a flat cover to it. It was very small. Oh, I'd say about 5 inches by 3 or 4 inches. It was very thin.
And you said when you looked in it, you couldn't recognize what it said, right?
Well, I was seeing some pictures in there, and there was some strange writing. So what I was drawing from it was because of the pictures. Being an amateur artist, I was trying to figure out what are these things, and so I kept on looking at it. But then after that, I put the small book down on the end table, and I don't know what happened to the Bible, if they took it with them or not. That was Becky's Bible, and it wasn't there any longer.
Now, you mentioned, Becky, because they had actually sort of let her come back to animation when you had given them, I guess, did you say something to indicate that, you were upset about seeing your family in that state? Or did they just sense it from you that, that bothered you, that you were seeing your kids and your mom sitting there, basically like stones,
Yeah, I think that the leader sensed that I was upset to see them just standing and sitting there, so to assure me that they were all right, that's why I think they took Becky out of that state of suspended animation.
And, it's funny because I don't know your other children. I do know Becky, and I know that she has some, kind of extra abilities.
Yes.
And do you think that because she was the one that, had the encounter in that way, that added to her abilities in some way? Or do you think they chose her because she already had those abilities?
Well, the thing is that Becky had dream. I had after the experience, I had just memory of one of the beings being there, and I knew what it looked like with the large head, the big black eyes, and everything. And that memory I had. And the thing was, Becky came to me about 3 or 4 days after, and she says, "Mommy, I'm having a terrible dream." And she explained what it was, that she saw these strange people in our house, and with the big eyes and the big head. And I realized, ooh, something happened, and I remembered the thin book I had that I had hidden in the closet because they told me I had it for 10 days and I didn't want it, just laying around there, so I had put it in my closet. And I was remembering just the one being at first, after it all had happened. And the thing was, she told me, "Well, I've had a dream and I'm afraid." I said, "Okay, honey, I'm going to show you something, but don't you tell anybody." And so I went into the bedroom with her, and I got the thin blue book down from the closet, and I held it out, and she put her hand on it. And when she did, all of a sudden she had sparkles all over her hand. Now, I don't know if she received some kind of a touch from the book at that point or what happened, but she is quite...
Was it, when you said sparkles, was it like an electrical thing, or was it like fairy dust, or what was it like?
Well, I would think it would be more like a dust, but they were very sparkly on her hand, and it amazed me. I mean, when I held it, I didn't get that sparkly things on me, but Becky did. And I said, "Now please don't tell anything, and don't tell your brothers and sisters, because I don't want you to frighten them, And as I said, afterwards, after the whole experience I went through, what I had remembered was just one being with the big eyes and the big head. And at that time, I had seen an article. Now, this was quite a few years after. I had seen an article that Dr. Hynek had put in a newspaper asking if anyone has seen any strange things, to please write to him. And this is what I did. I drew a picture of one of the beings that I had seen, and drew all the description of it, and I sent it in to the Center for UFO Studies, and it was 3 years later. It took 3 years before anybody started to work with it. There was a team of investigators in Massachusetts that were looking for anything concerning a hybrid. And so they got in touch with Dr. Hynek, and he in turn sent them my letter that he had filed away for 3 years. And that's when they got in touch with me and asked me if I would undergo regressive hypnosis to see what had happened.
And was there a hybrid aspect to your story?
Well, I know that they checked me. I was taken aboard the craft, and they checked me with needles for procreation, and they were kind of stunned. They pulled out like a spool with some kind of material on it, like web-like material on it, and it seemed as if they were reading it or something, and they said more or less that something was missing. And what it was is I had had a hysterectomy.
Oh, wow. So you think if that had not happened, that might have been part of what they were going to do with you?
Well, it's a possibility, yes. There's a very big possibility.
And now, when you were on the craft, nobody else from your family was in there, right?
No one but
just
me and the beings.
And when was it that you got to the point, was it on this particular occasion that you were taken to see the being that they termed the One?
It was during this experience, yes. I was taken before the One, and it was bright.
Can you describe that part of the experience?
Sure. Well, first of all, they had me aboard the craft, and we went through this green atmosphere, and we were on a track. There was two beings. There was one in front of me and one in back of me, and we had gone through some other areas, and they had a black hood on their heads. For some reason. They didn't give me any because I had dark, long hair. And we're I shouldn't say walking, it is more like riding. We were standing and moving along. And it was a green atmosphere, and there was like a green ocean underneath the track that ran along. And I looked off to the left-hand side. First of all, I saw something that looked like a plane of some kind, an airplane or something of some kind in the green atmosphere. But as we moved along, I looked over to the left, and there was a city there with large domes and pinnacles and the tracks were running in and out of the city. It was quite a distance from where the track was that we were on. And we're right in mid-air, moving along on this track. And the thing is, we kept on moving, and then all of a sudden, I also saw a pyramid-type building on some land. And there was like a head, like an Egyptian head with a kind of headpiece they would wear, like a kerchief, and that was on top of a three-sided pyramid. Only this three-sided pyramid was strange because it had like white siding on the side of it and flat in the front, and then it indented and indented on the other side to make the other two sides, so it was a three-sided pyramid. And then that head was on the top of it. We continued to move, and as we moved along, it was getting very bright and beautiful. The atmosphere was just beautiful, green. And as we moved along, I could see also these beautiful crystals in midair. They were just there in midair, and we're moving toward them. And as we moved toward them, I could see they were different colors were shining all around from them. It was really beautiful. And by the way, I have experienced that once again. But anyway, we moved through that area and moved closer toward very, very bright light. And the light, as we moved toward that bright light, I know this may sound so unusual and crazy, but this is what happened. All I can do is explain it. And up ahead was this huge bird, looked like an eagle, and it had its wings down, and I could see the fluttering of the feathers on the wings as the wings were down, almost like it was protecting somehow, because there was bright light in back of it that kept streaking out in all different directions, real bright white light. And it was like that eagle, the huge bird, was helping to keep it down from getting too bright, and it became extremely warm. And as I moved closer, the two smaller beings moved to the side, off the track, and took the hoods off of their head, and I was supposed to go up closer to the eagle that was there. But it was getting so hot, I could barely stand it, and there were all sparks of light flying all over the place besides the bright light in back of it. It seemed like it was protecting somehow from that bright light getting to me or something. It was just strange with all the lights, all around like that. And then suddenly, it was getting so warm. I don't know what happened, if I passed out or what happened, but the next thing I remember waking, and there's a huge gray pile of ashes that were still burning. And I'm wondering, what is going on? This is so strange. And out of those ashes was a huge, thick gray worm that came forth. And then the light was all around, and all of a sudden I heard somebody call my name, and they called my name Betty again. And I'm wondering what is going on. I'm fearful at that point because the light is so bright and someone is talking to me, but I can't see any figure or form, just extremely bright light. And the form, the voice said to me, Betty, I have chosen you to show the world. And then after I thought, what is this? Is it God? What is this that is happening? And he said, you have seen and you have heard. Do you understand? And I said, no, I don't understand. I don't even know why I am here. And at that point, I thought, it must be the Lord that is there. And it just was such a strange experience. It's very hard to explain it because I feel it each time I do try to explain how extremely unusual it was. After that, I went back with the two small beings that were dressed in silver suits at that time. They had been in the room where I had been examined and everything, and those beings were wearing just a silver suit, and one had been in front of me and one in back of me, and we started back to through the green atmosphere, and from the green atmosphere we went into this area. It was a swirling wind-like, and we moved right through it. Those two beings had put the black hoods back on their head, and we moved into this red atmosphere. It was a vibrating red. We had been in there when we came through in the first place, and there were these strange little creatures crawling all over. There were some buildings there, but there was no vegetation at all in this area. It was just square buildings with windows, just openings like a window, and they were crawling all over the place, and they looked very strange. They were bright red. They had two stalks right by the neck. They had two stalks that came up, and their eyes were on the ends of those stalks. And they were very fearful to me, because I thought, well, they could, the beings had these silver suits on plus the black hoods, but they didn't provide me with anything like that, no hood to cover myself. And it seemed like they were covering themselves because of this red atmosphere and these creatures that we were passing through to get to the other side.
Oh my gosh, this is all so amazing, Betty. We're going to have to take a break, but we're going to continue with this story. And I want to hear a little bit more about the one when we get back. But also, I think we ought to give Bob a chance to talk and let him tell us a little bit about his experience, and also what's happened with the two of you since all this went on. So including some harassment that you've had to undergo, which is really quite terrible, but it seems to be ongoing. So we're going to take a break right now. You're listening to Night Vision Radio with Betty Andreasson Luca and Bob Luca, and myself, René Barnett. We'll be right back.
Hi, Bob Tarmac for MJsHealthyWay.com. Are you into vitamins, nutrition, meal replacements, health shakes, keeping your body in good shape, your internal engine going? Boy, do I have a perfect place for you. MJsHealthyWay.com. They offer the best service and products, and they'll tell you anything you need to know about any product they have to offer. I get all my vitamins, meal replacements, shakes from MJsHealthyWay.com. That's spelled MJsHealthyWay.com. There's so much more at the website. Go check it out. MJsHealthyWay.com.
Hello, everyone. Lori and Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to Night Vision Radio with René Barnett. René will be exposing the truth one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
Hi, I'm John Payne, vocalist for the band Asia FJP and creator of Las Vegas's Raiding the Rock Vault. You know, music provides the very soundtracks of our lives and has the power to impassion and inspire us like nothing else. My friends at returnofthetroubadour.com understand that as well. And that's why they're sponsoring a contest in search of a very special song. A song that uplifts the heart and inspires the soul. I'm very pleased to be sitting on the panel of distinguished contest judges. And by the way, prizes are quite nice too. So if you're a songwriter, don't delay. Go to returnofthetroubadour.com for all the contest details and deadlines, and send us your song. It could just be that special one. That's returnofthetroubadour.com, where they know music can change the world.
You're locked into Inception Radio Network, Superior, Wisconsin.
Hey, thanks for hanging in there with us. And if you're just joining us, you're listening to Night Vision Radio. And I'm René Barnett, your host. Tonight, my guests, Betty Andreasson Luca and Bob Luca. They're talking with us about their experiences with alien abduction and subsequent issues that have come into play since then. In other words, harassment by certain agencies and other shadowy people. So, but before we get into the bad stuff, Betty, could you tell us a little bit more when you were in the presence of who you call the One? Can you tell me what it was that you were feeling? I know before you had been afraid because you didn't know what was going on. Here was this gigantic bird and all this stuff going on and this bright light. And then, but once you got in the presence of that being, what was your feeling and emotion?
Well, after you said, I have chosen you to show the world, I'm just wondering what is going on. I'm just a young woman. How can I be used to show the world something? And as time went by, I had many more encounters. As you know, there's been 5 books written. I've got Bob and I are working on the 6th book because I've had another experience with the One, and I think it's more of a personal experience where it was directed directly to me. It has been hard, and as we get older, it's hard for me to remember a lot of things, unfortunately.
Oh, well, isn't that true for all of us?
But the One is extremely important, and
yes,
I think I fear because of the now I know, and I believe I know, because I was given something that I will be putting in the 6th book, how great the One is.
When you say you were given something, you mean in terms of knowledge?
In terms of, yes, of knowledge, and also in being an amateur artist, I started off with a picture and asking the One to please show me what it is all about. And it started to expand and expand and expand, and it opened up more and more to me. And that's what I hope might be extremely helpful for the world.
Oh, that's good. I wanted to ask you if you felt that they'd given you any information that, the rest of us need to know that would help us, or do you feel like they aren't here to help us? Or because it sounded like your experience was generally positive. It's strange, but
it is. Yeah, it was very
positive.
Yeah, it was very positive. It's just that when you're in with the unknown, you tend to fear somewhat, because you don't know what's going to happen. We're just human. He did give some things he spoke about where those particular beings are keepers of nature and all natural forms. So evidently they watch over the earth and what's happening and can see the problems that we have, and what we're doing to the planet. So a lot of these things they were showing, for me to understand that we're in trouble right now, but things can change if we can change.
Do you feel like they're able to intervene in any way?
They do in some respect, because being keepers of nature and all natural form, they've been here since our very beginning. And so, a lot of people think, well, if those are angels, the thing is, what else is there, And a lot of people don't realize that God has made many things, and many, the human race, the angelic race, the beings being angelic race could have different looks and different degrees of what their jobs are to do. He's not limited on what he creates.
Right. Well, it would be, I guess in a way, if something happened, I would think if something like that happened to me, then later I might start to question, was I dreaming? Am I going crazy? Mm-hmm. But what you had was a real gift in that, because they did allow Becky to sort of come back to consciousness as well during the incident. Mm-hmm. You never had to really question whether something really happened or not.
Right. No,
because there was always this other person that it happened to as well. So it wasn't like, okay,
right,
I'm not crazy,
Becky since childhood. What happened when she was a baby? She was just about 2 or 3 years old. And the thing was, we were living in an apartment, ground apartment, and I was home with the children, and the two were born at that time, which was Becky and my son Jimmy, and she was taken out of the house. And somebody came knocking at the door, and I was waiting for the kids to wake up, and so I laid down for her briefly, and I must have fallen asleep. Somebody was knocking on the door, and I went to the door, and it was a woman who I did not know, but she said, your child is up in the sandbox playing, and she is naked. So I rushed out of the house and scooped her up and brought her into the house. And the thing was, there was no way she could get out of 2 locked doors, and all the windows were closed and locked, that for her age to be able to get out of her crib and go out there to play in the sandbox. Something happened. And her experiences are written in the Andreasson legacy. She also underwent regressive hypnosis, and that's when we found out what had happened. She was taken out of the house. And a lot of people, when they have had a UFO experience, a lot of times it follows in the family line, so that other members of the family also have things happening to them.
That's right. I've heard that it can be generational. It happens, and then it will have happened to your parents and your grandparents, and
definitely.
And that sort of thing.
Yes, definitely.
Now at some point after this major experience that involved your whole family, you ended up. At some point, I guess you weren't married anymore to your husband,
right?
And you went and did you move away from where you were living?
From the house that I had the first experience, yes, we moved from there, and it was later we had built a large home, and I had all 7 children with me, and unfortunately my ex-husband had a problem with drinking, And so there's a lot of stuff that happened that he disappeared and so forth, and it was very. But I've had a lot of hard times through my life, but I'm fine.
Yeah. But at some point you met your husband Bob, and
Right.
Bob, I know we were talking yesterday about how that actually happened, and it was kind of strange how it came about. Because I think you were driving clear across country, headed like for New York or something, and then you ended up just suddenly, for no reason, deciding to head straight to Florida instead.
Yeah, it was something that was totally unplanned. There's something that I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably want to know, and Betty didn't bring up, so I will first. Before this book was ever written, there were extensive investigations done on everything from her background to things that happened while she was, this was supposedly going on, like the power failure. The electric company said, yes, there was a power failure at that time, but they couldn't verify why it happened. Also, Betty went through lie detector tests, psychological examination, psychiatric examination, and as a matter of fact, at one point, the psychiatrist was visiting us. He stayed with us till about 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were outside. He was ready to go home, and a large cigar-shaped cloud stopped over the house. And he looked up, and he noticed it, and finally he said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yes, but I wasn't going to say anything until after you noticed it." For obvious reasons. But anyway, what happened with how we met, I had an experience in 1944 and in 1967 as well. In 67, I was also taking aboard the craft. I was given a physical examination. A good deal of it I remembered consciously up to the point where they took me aboard the craft for the exam. And, excuse me,
Did you have conscious memories of that?
I had, as I was on my way to the beach, and I got to an area called the Trap Rock, and there was a railroad spur that went into that Trap Rock so they could haul the crushed stone and so forth out. There were 5 men working on that railroad spur. None of them were working. They were all looking up in the sky. So I looked up to see what it was that had attracted their attention, and I saw 2 huge cigar-shaped objects that were brilliant. I mean, just like highly polished chrome reflecting in the sunlight. And it was a beautiful, clear day. There was hardly a cloud in the sky. Well, just a little ways down from where they were, there was an area where I could pull off the road, which I did. And I started watching these 2 things. It was amazing. There was no wings, no tail section. They obviously were not airplanes. There was no exhaust, no jet engines, no noise. So I watched them as they were headed toward New Haven, Connecticut, from where I was. And a short time later, after I stopped, 2 smaller disc-shaped objects dropped out of the bottom of these things, one out of each one. One went toward New Haven, and one went in the exact opposite direction. So I still sat and I watched till the 2 larger ones were out of sight, thinking, wow, that was quite a thing, whatever it was. I started on my way to the beach again, got a few miles down the road, and this was a very rural area. And all of a sudden I saw one of these smaller disc-shaped craft coming down to the left of me, and it was kind of floating down like with a falling leaf motion, and it got to a point several feet above the ground, and it just stopped. And I thought, that is strange. And I'm looking at this thing, and all of a sudden there was a brilliant flash of red light. I could only compare it to like a ruby rod laser, very, very intense red light. And the next thing I know, I'm not in my car anymore. I'm inside this thing, and it's totally strange because, for one thing, everything is lit, brightly lit, but there are no shadows, but I cannot see one light bulb or fluorescent light or anything. it's almost as if the actual atmosphere was lit inside there. And there was one of these little gray beings, very similar to what Betty had seen, except these guys had on skin-tight red uniforms with a lightning bolt on the left-hand side of the chest, or what looked like a lightning bolt. But they had the large gray bulbous heads and the huge black eyes and so on. I was told to undress, which I did, mostly out of fear. And I was put on a very odd table. And I say odd because there were no straps or restraints on this table. But once they put me on it, I could not move. It was almost like somebody put super glue up and down my back. I had a little movement in my head and my eyes, and that was about it. They took samples of fingernails, skin, they moved my ankles, they moved my head in different directions. And then the thing that was really totally blew my mind, as one of them was walking by me, he turned from a solid physical being into a being of just light. It was as if the color just faded out of him. And that kind of, got my mind in a real tizzy, because I didn't know what to expect. And I wanted to get out of there in the worst way. I wanted to get out. If I told you I wasn't afraid, I'd be lying. And they told me, don't worry, we're not going to hurt you and all. And I'm thinking, yeah, you're not going to hurt me, but here I'm stuck on this table. I can't move. And ever since that point, I've been a little claustrophobic. But anyway, when they finished, the last thing they did was scan me from head to foot with something like an X-ray machine, I guess you'd call it. And it gave off a pinkish white light, very strange light. They scanned me, and then when they were done with me, I was put back in my car and headed to the beach. Now, the last thing I remember consciously was seeing this brilliant flash of red light. It should have taken me about a half hour to get to the beach. But when I got there, I was hungry. I went to a restaurant. 2.5 hours had passed. And I never knew where that time had gone until I had went with the investigators in Connecticut and underwent hypnosis. So that's...
Did you feel like, though, that something had happened, or... did you feel like uneasy?
Yeah, I knew something was wrong. I mean, that part of my life was gone. I mean, it's just, I knew the drive. I'd done it 1,000 times, and it takes a half hour or so. And yet, 2.5 hours of my life I couldn't account for. And of course, you couple that with remembering seeing the two big cigar-shaped things and then the smaller disc-shaped craft, and okay, you got a problem here, but what is it? I didn't know for years until I underwent hypnosis, and I didn't tell anybody. Even when I saw those things, I told my parents, and I told my best friend, who was a police officer in town at the time. I didn't tell anybody else because I didn't want to end up in a rubber room, to be honest with you.
How did your parents react to it?
Well, actually, it was... What was a little shocking to me is my mother actually had a sighting, and she said she remembered the inside of a craft, but she would never, till the day she died, she would never undergo hypnosis or pursue it in any way. She was fearful of it. My dad, he was in the aerospace industry, and he was very closed-mouthed. Till the day he died, he he just didn't discuss it with me. What he knew from his position and his job, I don't know. But he just didn't talk about it. So that's how that ended up. But,
yeah.
How I met Betty, which we
so this is what. Yeah, so this is, you'd gone through all this, and then subsequent to that, was this really bugging you? Because at some point you did figure out, what had happened, and then but you didn't really have many people to talk to about it, right?
Right. That's why.
You just talked to your parents. You told your best friend, but they couldn't really relate so much to what you'd experienced.
No, not at all.
And so, how did that lead us to Betty?
Well, a friend of mine and I had a camp trailer, and work was a little slow in Connecticut, so we were taking a ride around the country to look for work in different areas. And we had been down through the southern portion of the country. We're in Texas and California and Oregon, and then we had started home along the northern tier of the country, coming back to Connecticut. And kind of spur of the moment, I think Eddie suggested that we go to Florida. So we just went, period. So this is several thousand miles out of our way. And we got to Florida and parked our camp trailer on his sister-in-law's front lawn. And during the course of dinner one evening, she mentioned she worked with a woman that had had a UFO experience. And I said, wow, I have to talk to this woman. So I went down to where Betty was working, and she wouldn't talk to me. The investigators had told her, beware of reporters. She thought I was a reporter, and boy, she gave me a hard time. I mean, she just wasn't going to talk to me. So I kept it up, and finally I got her to agree to have lunch with me the next day. And from that point on, I've been buying her lunch about ever since. She's here. I could talk to her. I wasn't afraid of being ridiculed. She knew what I felt because she'd already had these experiences. So we got along, right from the beginning. We got along terrific. And we still do for some reason. It's amazing.
Wow, that is amazing in this day and age. Betty, when he told you, yeah, oh, I know. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Betty, when he was telling
I've
you,
been married all my life, I guess. I had my first 22 years, and then I got married to Bob, and it's been 35 years.
Yeah, that is amazing. When he was telling you about his story, Betty, were you recognizing things in his story that you could relate to? And I mean, did you feel like he was telling the truth from the beginning?
Oh, yes, yeah. He was really great. I mean, and you could see he was serious, so that made me feel good to know that he really was trying to find out, too, what was going on, So that was really good. But there were so many things that were happening, Renee, that it's hard to recall everything because there were times that we went through some really difficult times, not our marriage, but with things happening in our household, and also it seems like the government surveillance and everything we went through, followed by unmarked cars. Our telephone was constantly bugged. Bob is better off telling you all those things because he kept track of a lot of it.
Well, we're going to get into that after the next break, which we're going to take in just a couple minutes. But so you guys, basically, once you really figured out that you were both having this same genuine type of experience, then it wasn't too long where you guys were just together and ended up getting married. And then did you have continuing experiences after you got married?
Yes.
Or did you have any experiences together?
We've had abductions together, yes.
Yeah.
And did you remember any of those, or did you just kind of know, something's happened again, we better go and see what this is and go back into hypnosis again?
Yeah, that's what we did. We did get back into hypnosis.
But parts were remembered prior to the hypnosis.
Yeah, we did, yeah. And
there were physical evidence, traces left at different times.
Yeah. And it's very unusual things, not only the UFO phenomena, but paranormal things were going on, that you couldn't explain. And usually the paranormal is so much harder to explain than, when you've got beings there with you and things are going on and you can, they're testing you and checking you. Well, you know exactly what's happening, but a lot of the paranormal things just all of a sudden are there and happening, and you're wondering, oh, well, what is this? Why is this happening? But I think we're open to the spirit. That's what it is, and life is all around us. It's just that our eyes do not see it. Our eyes are closed, and probably for the best for our eyes to be closed, because probably people would be in extreme fear.
Yeah, but I wonder if there'll be a time when we're ready for it all.
Yeah, the being told me that I would have to, during my 1967 encounter, that I would have to forget what had happened until my race would believe me. Then it would start to open up. And I guess that is when a lot of the information started to come out, because the investigators were interested, and of course that's showing that the people are starting to awake to, what else is around in our world, even though our eyes
absolutely
happening. Yeah.
And I think now it's even more so. So it's funny that now you're, sort of reemerged back into the public eye. But we're going to have to take another quick break. And when we come back, I want to hear about some of the paranormal activity, as I know that our listeners would like to hear, and also about the harassment that you've undergone. We'll finally get into that dark stuff. All right, we're going to be right back in just a few minutes with Betty Andreasson Luca and Bob Luca. Please stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, Bob Tarmac for MJ'sHealthyWay.com. Are you into vitamins, nutrition, meal replacements, health shakes, keeping your body in good shape, your internal engine going? Boy, do I have a perfect place for you. MJ'sHealthyWay.com. They offer the best service and products, and they'll tell you anything you need to know about any product they have to offer. I get all my vitamins, meal replacements, shakes from MJ'sHealthyWay.com. That's spelled MJSHealthyway.com. There's so much more at the website. Go check it out. MJ'sHealthyway.com.
Hello, everyone. Lorian Fenton here, host of the California MUFON radio show, asking if you'd like special access to exclusive and amazing information about UFOs, the paranormal, and all things unexplained. If you're nodding yes, then join IRN's Insider Club. As an Insider Club member, you'll get an all-access pass to premier Inception Radio Network content for only $4.99 a month. This includes live UFO and paranormal conferences, live streaming UFO skywatches, exclusive IRN radio and TV productions, and of course, paying radio with MJ and Ken Storch. So don't wait any longer. Visit InceptionRadioNetwork.com and click on Member Login to join IRN's Insider Club and get your VIP access today.
Do you have a smartphone? If so, Inception Radio Network is the best app for you. Available on iTunes, Android, Samsung, and most other app stores. Just search Inception Radio Network. With the app you can listen live, check out podcasts of recent and past shows, view our videos, see what shows are coming up, who the guests are, and, via the chat room, send live questions to those guests. You know it makes sense. Check your app store now. Inception Radio Network. I'll see you there.
Hey, IRN listeners, make sure you tune in to Night Vision Radio with René Barnett. René will be exposing the truth one secret at a time. When? Thursdays. Every Thursday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. Where? Right here on IRN.
Hi, I'm John Payne, vocalist for the band Asia FJP and creator of Las Vegas's Raiding the Rock Vault. You know, music provides the very soundtracks of our lives and has the power to impassion and inspire us like nothing else. My friends at returnofthetroubadour.com understand that as well, and that's why they're sponsoring a contest in search of a very special song, a song that uplifts the heart and inspires the soul. I'm very pleased to be sitting on the panel of distinguished contest judges. And by the way, prizes are quite nice too. So if you're a songwriter, don't delay. Go to returnofthetroubadour.com for all the contest details and deadlines, and send us your song. It could just be that special one. That's returnofthetroubadour.com, where they know music can change the world.
Welcome back to Night Vision Radio. I'm your host, René Barnett. We're talking with Betty Andreasson Luca and Bob Luca about their strange alien abduction experiences and subsequent occurrences. We'll just put it that way. Now, Betty, before the break, you were talking, and Bob, feel free to jump in any time, because I imagine you've been a witness to some of this stuff too. But you were talking about subsequent to your experiences, you started having a lot of paranormal activity in the house. Can you tell us how that manifested?
Well, we've had different voices in the house, like there's a party going on, and we don't know what's doing it. We've had two psychics say that we have, what is it they call that? Portals open in our basement. One is under the cellar stairs, and the other is way on the opposite side, way on to the right there, in the same area, but on the opposite side of it. Another portal is open, and we've had a lot of strange things from it.
We've also had the girls had seen a shadow person more than once in the house. And I chased what I thought was a man that had entered our basement. There was only one way out. I followed this guy down into the basement, and when I got there, I was the only one there. We also had problems with lights that would go on and off by themselves in the house. One morning we came down, and in the kitchen had crown molding. All of the crown molding was on the floor, and all of the finishing nails were still in the wall. And at the same time, there was a big stainless steel pot, which has a rolled top edge, and stainless steel is very tough. That pot split right through the rolled edge, and was also what looked like etching on some of our drinking glasses. Mm-hmm. And this was photographed by a professional photographer from Massachusetts. But the neighborhood kids were over one time dancing with the two girls. The lights started going off and on in the house, and the kids took off and ran home. So, I mean, it's been just one thing after another like that for a long period of time.
Yep.
Even the investigators, the police officer, Larry Fawcett, was at our house with his wife. We were having dinner, and we had an etagere with glass shelves, and on that glass shelf was a glass dinner bell. Well, the bell started to ring. So Larry, the police officer, jumped up and ran over real quick to look at it. There was also liquor on that same shelf. The liquor was not moving. It was not disturbed in any way, and yet that bell was ringing. And that's just, a couple of examples of different types of things that we'd experienced.
We came home one evening, and from the movies, I think it was, and Bob and I were sitting on the chairs in the kitchen, and all of a sudden, it was like a choir of angels singing. It was the most beautiful music either him or I have ever heard. And he can explain about there was no...
Where was it coming from?
We don't know.
That's a good question, because there was the window. It was cool. The windows were all closed. The radio was off. The television was off. I mean, there's just no explanation, but it was the most beautiful music I had ever heard in my life.
And so many odds and ends things happening, like when we lived at the other house in the evening, we went to sleep, and all of a sudden we awoke because the whole room was in red light, and we heard hundreds of birds singing, and they just kept on.
That was at 3 a.m. in the morning.
So many things. I mean, the multiple what we have gone through, don't understand why we're seeing them or going through them, but they're there.
Well, now, why do you think, or do you have any opinion as to why that might be happening?
I think
subsequent to your experiences.
I think our spirit is open to this as well, because there's more than just this what we see with our eyes.
Well, I look at it a little bit differently. I look at it as we are living in an interdimensional or multi-dimensional universe, and I think that the veil between these dimensions has been growing thinner as time passes, and also many people who have been involved in the UFO phenomena have had this almost like poltergeist activity that seems to follow for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
But that's only my opinion. I can't prove it.
And the book that we are writing together, the title is Lifting the Veil. We're going to try and show some of those other things that had occurred.
Oh, that'll be interesting. Now, you said that you had photographed some of the things, or had them photographed. Will there be any pictures in the book of any of that paranormal?
Yeah,
etching or any of that?
There'll be pictures. There'll be drawings. I'll be doing some line drawings because the picture in front of you gives you a better idea of what is happening, And I guess that's what the investigators were happy over, because it helped them to also see about the craft, all the machinery I saw, And I think that might be partly why the government has been interested in us, because somebody broke into our fifth wheel one time, and nothing was taken. There was expensive stuff in there, but nothing was taken but some drawings that I had of which pertained to a craft.
The drawings were taken?
Yeah, they were taken, yep. We were going to a lecture, and we were away, and when we came home, the door had been broken in, and you could tell about the police officers, what happened.
Well, the interesting thing, and this happened more than once, but we lived it was in a rural area in a campground, so we had to have a local state trooper come up to do the paperwork so I could get the insurance to replace the door. And we told them straight out that we thought it was a government agency involved, that we were heavily involved in the UFO phenomena. And the man was pretty good. He said, well, look, he said, if I find anything out, he said, I will tell you. The following week, I went down to the trooper's office to talk to him, and he had been transferred out of the area, and they couldn't tell me where he went. And this also happened to me with an FAA official that came all the way down to our house from the Boston area because of the black helicopters. He left a note on the weekend, and Tuesday when I called, I was told he had been transferred, and they didn't have a forwarding address, or they couldn't tell me where he went.
Yeah.
But anyway, the government got really interested after when the first book came out. First, we started noticing these black helicopters over the house, and they got more and more frequent and lower until one of our neighbors, a city councilwoman, started to document the times and dates of these flights because they were so low the windows would rattle in the house. Well, we moved from there to Cheshire, Connecticut, and lo and behold, the flights stopped in Meriden and they started in Cheshire where we were. Not only did we have the helicopter flights, which were black, unmarked helicopters, which I took many photos of, but the IRS got, well, let's say they wanted to help us because every year for several years they called us in for an audit so, you know, that they could keep our finances straight for us and we wouldn't have to worry about it. So we had the audits with the IRS. We had these helicopters, which I checked with everyone, every single department of the military, the CIA, the FBI, the helicopter manufacturers, the Federal Aviation Administration. No one could tell us whose helicopters they were, and they flew illegally low over our house because I was taking flying lessons at the time. And the regulations say, yes, a helicopter can fly low, but it has to be 500 feet laterally away from your house. Well, these things would come right over and low enough where I could take a baseball if I wanted and hit them. It would not be a problem. Then we started to be followed. Every place we went, these cars would be behind us, and it was almost obvious. They weren't very good at it. And as a young fellow, I used to build race cars, and I used to race on the street because there was no racetracks where we lived. So several times I was able to get behind these cars and get the license plates. I gave them to Police Lieutenant Larry Fawcett, and when he ran the plates, they came back as unissued.
Also with laundry.
So, you know, who's driving plates with unissued, cars with unissued plates?
Exactly.
Pretty simple. The black helicopters would turn up whether we were in Florida, Connecticut, New Hampshire, didn't matter where we were, and the government knew. I don't know if they had our house bugged. I'm going to give you one example. You know Patricia. We were doing a lecture.
Patricia Baker, yeah, and I wanted to thank you for reminding me because I wanted to thank Patricia on the air. She's actually been a past guest on my show a couple years ago, and she's working with the two of you in promoting your book and subsequent projects.
Right.
Yeah, and I really wanted to thank her for arranging this for us because it's been just great. Now, go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
Okay, we were doing a private lecture at her home, and Betty had just finished talking about her experiences, and I started to talk about the black helicopters, and all of a sudden the noise came, the windows started to rattle, everyone looked out the windows, and there was the black helicopter passing over the house. Now, you might say, coincidence. A few weeks later, we were doing another private lecture in New Britain, Connecticut. Betty finished talking about her experiences. I started talking about the helicopters. Along comes a helicopter over New Britain, over this, it was a dentist's home that we were doing a lecture in. A few weeks after that, we were doing a lecture at the house of a contractor. Same exact thing. They knew where we were.
And what was happening, because what happened was I was receiving some messages from the beings at times, and I would write them down right away. Whatever was spoken to me, I would write down. And for some reason, as soon as I started receiving those messages and writing them down, evidently they were listening into the house because all of a sudden we heard the whop, 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 whop of the helicopter coming to the house. Evidently they were trying to hone in, thinking they were going to find out where it was coming from.
And it wasn't only that.
You know, you hear about these. Oh, sorry. You hear about these black helicopters, you know, a lot around the UFO subject and around people that have had experiences or that are looking into certain cases or something. I mean, what do you think those are all about? You obviously see them. You think they're just intimidating, or?
Well, we were doing a lecture in Phoenix, and a man came over to me during the intermission, and he was obviously military. Had very short cut hair. He was about in his mid-30s. Shiny black shoes. His shirt buttoned down the front exactly even with his belt buckle. To me, this was military or something. And he said, we are sending the helicopters so we don't have to hurt you. That's what he said. And so my reply was, well, I guess you're going to have to hurt me. It's for intimidation.
Yeah.
And we've been driving along the road, like in northern parts of Massachusetts on Route 2, and had two Huey helicopters take off from a field, cross right over our car in a rural area at less than 50 feet. And if you don't think that's intimidating, you ought to try it sometime. But if someone wants to see them, they can go on our website, Andreasonaffair.com, and I have a number of photos there of helicopters that I took over different residences that we were in over a period of many years. They harassed us in that manner.
Bob was in a gun shop, and I was sitting outside in the car. And all of a sudden, he was looking at, I don't know what kind of...
I was buying an AR-15.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, a black helicopter showed up, and it was hovering over the back side of the shop. I don't know if they could hear it or not, but it was loud. And there was also a
reporter from the
Meriden Record that's seen it also. I was in a store looking at wallpaper because we were refurbishing the house, and the thing is they had all windows in the front, and they've got like a book, a large book where you can check all the different types of wallpaper. And so I was turning the pages. All of a sudden, a helicopter came over in front, and the guy had a camera, and he had his foot on the lower bars of the helicopter and was taking pictures of me. The clerk came running in and says, "Oh, they're taking pictures of our store." So that's what we've been going through.
On another occasion, which this was funny, we had gone to Fort Christmas Campground in Florida, and there's a lot of pines there, and we had got a lot that was in a clearing. And we pulled our trailer in, and we were just parking it, and this small helicopter came along, stopped right over the clearing, and the man was taking our picture. So I quick got my camera out of the trailer, and while he was taking our picture, I took his photo. I have photos of him photographing us.
Well, I'm going to be on the lookout now that I've been talking to you guys. I'm going to be on the lookout for those black helicopters hovering around my house.
Well,
I'm going to call you if I see them.
Yes, please do, René.
You probably will. But
I will.
Not only did we see them, but police officer Fawcett witnessed them. A reporter from the Hartford Courant that came to our home to interview us had seen them. Mm-hmm. Our neighbors had seen them and documented them. I mean, it's not like it's just us that's saying that we've seen them.
And
they were witnessed by
us.
they were witnessed by many, many people.
That's just really, really wild.
Yeah, it is wild because you wonder what next, you know. When we were down in Florida also, we were at the laundromat, and it was all windows in the front, and there was one lady there sitting at the desk, and all of a sudden a man came in with his car. He jumped out, he came, and we were in the front. I was doing the wash in one of the machines in front of the window there. He started taking pictures at us while we were washing our clothes. And we're wondering, what in the world is going on? I asked the woman, do you have this place up for sale or something? Well, Bob, luckily, he got the number of the car when the man took off, and he gave it to Larry Fawcett again, and it was unissued, so you know that it's a government car.
Why? I just don't understand, the intimidation, I guess. What information are they afraid that you're going to give out that you haven't already given?
Right.
They spent a ton of money for nothing, because if they had come and asked us in a nice way, we would have told them
of course
pretty much what they wanted to know. But one other thing that happened to us was really funny. We were up in New Hampshire, and it was a little cool, and we were tenting. So we put our tent down, and we had a large German Shepherd. I put a stake in the ground and put him right outside the tent. And the guy that was following us, which was more than likely FBI, came and parked directly across from us with his SUV, and he gets out his tent and the tent poles and all, and he couldn't put the thing together. He was cursing a blue streak, and he finally went in and slept in his car during the night. And the reason I say FBI, on one occasion, Betty and I left for Florida in the middle of the night without telling anyone, and that was on like a Saturday evening. And Tuesday, 2 FBI agents with photo ID showed up at my job, and they questioned my coworkers and my supervisor, so they lost track of us because we left during the
What kind of... Oh, they were asking about where you were?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost track of us because we left about 2:30 in the morning. We got up, hooked up our little trailer, and went.
Oh, my goodness. They were sleeping on the job, I guess.
Yeah.
We're all over the place, or we used to be anyway. Now that we've gotten older, we're a little more settled. But we're still having a lot happening.
Oh, man. When they went in and questioned your coworkers and your employer, who did they say they were? Did they say they were the FBI?
Oh, yeah, they had photo ID.
And we went there after.
And Betty and I did, when we got back from Florida, we did go to the FBI office, and they said they could neither confirm nor deny. And I asked them while we were there, I said, why are you tapping our telephone? And he said, well, in your case, it's not us, it's Air Force intelligence.
Yeah, the telephone was really bad. But my mother was sick, and what happened was I went to call to see that she was all right, and they had the lines open. I said, please get off the phone because my mother's ill. I've got to call her. And then they hung right up, and I was able to get to her. And another time was I had lifted up the phone, and I heard a woman say, the director's office, and I said, director of what? And she hung up. Also, I worked at updating the city directory at one time, and the man who sells the city directory was always on his job away from the shop, and he would call in off and on to see what had to be done and everything. Well, he called in, and he got the Pentagon. And he signed a paper for me and told exactly. He called that number daily, and yet he got the Pentagon.
Wow. That is just too wild. You know what? The music's starting to play, and we're all out of time. I want to thank you both, Betty Andreasson Luca and Bob Luca, for being my special guests tonight. You've got an amazing story. I recommend everybody to read The Andreasson Affair, and I cannot wait to see the new book because it's going to have some information. Again, like Betty, you said, it's important for all of us, so I can't wait to read that. Thanks so much, guys. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye now.
Good night.